My wife threw me out after believing her son's lies. 3 weeks later, she asked if I'd reflected. I gave her divorce papers, and her son lost it. I, 42 male, have been sitting in my home office for 3 hours tonight, just staring at the wall and thinking about how fast a person's world can catch fire. You see these stories on the internet and you think, that would never be me. I'm too smart for that. I'd see the red flags. But when you're in the thick of it, when you actually love someone, those red flags just look like festive decorations until they're used to wrap a noose around your neck. I've been married to my wife, 40F, for 5 years. I was a bachelor for a long time, built a very successful career in commercial real estate, and bought a beautiful 4-bedroom home in a quiet, upscale suburb of a major U.S. city. I'm a guy who likes stability. My wife, when I met her, seemed like she wanted the same. She was a single mom to her son, 19M, and I took that responsibility seriously. I didn't just want to be the guy paying the bills, I wanted to be a mentor. I paid for his private high school, I bought him his first car, and I spent countless weekends at his games. I thought we were building a foundation. But the son always had this streak of entitlement that I tried to ignore. He'd borrow my high-end watch and leave it on a bathroom counter at the gym. He'd forget to put gas in the car I paid for. My wife always brushed it off. He's just a boy, honey. He's learning. He was 18, then 19. At what point does a boy become a man responsible for his own choices? The breaking point happened on a Tuesday. I'll never forget it because it was a clear, beautiful morning, and I had a huge presentation for a new development downtown. I left the house at 7 a.m. sharp. My wife was still in bed, and her son was supposedly asleep in his room. I went to the office, did my presentation, grabbed lunch with a client, and didn't get back until about 5:30 p.m. The second I walked through the door, I knew the atmosphere was heavy. You know that feeling when the atmosphere in a room just feels pressurized? My wife was sitting at the kitchen island. She wasn't cooking, she wasn't on her phone, she was just staring at the front door. Her son was standing by the fridge, arms crossed, looking at me with a mix of fear and something else, something that looked a lot like a dare. "Where is it?" she asked. No hello, no how was your day. I put my keys on the counter. Where is what? Is everything okay? The heirloom necklace, my mother's necklace, the one with the 3-carat emerald, it's gone. The velvet box is on the floor under my vanity, and the jewelry is gone. I felt a pang of concern. That necklace was the only thing she had left from her mother. Did we have a break-in? Did you call the police? Check the back door. We didn't have a break-in, she said, standing up. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying all afternoon. No one came in and no one left except you and my son. And he saw you, he saw you. I looked at the son. He saw me what? The kid stepped forward, acting all shaky. I woke up around 8:30 a.m. to get a drink of water. I saw you coming out of Mom's bedroom. You had a small black pouch in your hand. I thought maybe you were taking it to get it cleaned or something, so I didn't say anything. But then Mom started looking for it this afternoon, and it's just gone. Why would you do that, man? We trusted you. I was floored. I wasn't even here at 8:30 a.m. I was in a meeting at 7:45 a.m., 30 miles from here. I have a building full of witnesses. My wife slammed her hand on the counter. Stop lying. Why would he lie about this? He loves you. He's been crying all afternoon because he couldn't believe his own stepdad would steal from us. You've always looked down on us, haven't you? You think because you have the money in the house, you can just take whatever you want and we won't say anything because we're lucky to be here. The level of delusion was staggering. I tried to stay calm. Check the cameras. We have the Ring doorbell. We have the garage sensor. It'll show I left at 7 a.m. The ring was rebooting between 6:45 a.m. and 9 a.m., she spat. The logs say the Wi-Fi was manually disconnected. You knew exactly what you were doing. You're the only one who knows the router password besides me. I looked at the son. He gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. He had killed the Wi-Fi. He had staged this whole thing. I realized in that moment that my wife didn't want the truth. She wanted to protect her image of her son. If she admitted he was a thief, her whole world would crumble. It was easier to make me the villain. "You want out," she said. "I can't look at you. My son is scared of you now. He thinks you're going to hurt him to keep him quiet." "Scared of me?" I asked, looking at the 19-year-old who was 6'1" and 200 pounds. "This is my house. I pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. You are not throwing me out of my own property." "If you don't leave," she whispered, picking up her phone, "I'm calling 911. I'll tell them you're being aggressive and that I fear for our safety. I'll get a temporary restraining order. You know the laws in this state. They'll remove you anyway, and it'll look a lot worse for your fancy career when it's on the public record. Just go to a hotel, reflect on what you've done. If you bring the necklace back in a few weeks, maybe we can talk about counseling." I saw the trap. If I stayed and the police came and she played the part of the distraught wife with a witness son, I'd be in handcuffs before I could show them my GPS logs. The legal system in a domestic situation like that is a remove now, ask questions later machine. I had too much to lose to play that game. I grabbed a suitcase, I packed enough for 2 weeks, I took my passport, my birth certificate, and my legal folders from my home office safe. As I walked out, the son was sitting on the couch eating a bowl of cereal like nothing had happened. My wife wouldn't even look at me. I checked into a hotel and spent the first 48 hours in a state of absolute shock. I kept waiting for her to text me and say, "I'm sorry, I found it, I was wrong." But the text never came. Instead, I got a message from her on day 3. "Don't bother calling. We've changed the codes on the door. If you come here, the police will be called immediately." That was the moment the husband version of me died and the business version of me took over. I realized I was in a war I didn't start, but I was sure as hell going to finish it. First, I called my attorney. Not just a divorce lawyer, but a guy I know who handles high-stakes civil and criminal litigation. I told him everything. He told me, "Stay away from the house. Let them get comfortable. We need hard evidence." I hired a private investigator named Frank. Frank was a former detective who specialized in wayward children. I gave him the son's plate number and told him to find that necklace. "If a kid like that steals a high-value item," Frank told me over coffee, "he's not keeping it under his mattress. He's either got a gambling debt, a drug problem, or he's trying to impress a girl. My money is on the local pawn shops or the underground jewelry buyers." While Frank did his thing, I started digging into my own finances. I noticed things I'd been too busy to see before. Small withdrawals, a few hundred here, a few hundred there.
Wife had a secondary credit card on my account for emergencies. The emergencies apparently included several high-end dinners and shopping sprees at stores her son liked, all happening while I was out of town for work over the last 6 months. They were bleeding me dry and planned to use the theft as a way to push me out and keep the lifestyle. A week later, Frank called me. "I found it, but you're not going to believe the stones on this kid." He sent me a file. It contained grainy but clear CCTV footage from a pawn shop about 20 miles away in a rougher part of the city. The date on the footage was the very morning I was thrown out, but the timestamp was 10:30 a.m. In the video, the son walks in. He's wearing a very distinctive navy blue hoodie with my alma mater's logo on it, a hoodie I'd been looking for weeks. He pulls the emerald necklace out of a black pouch and spends 20 minutes haggling with the guy behind the counter. The best part? The kid had to show his ID to complete the transaction. The shop owner, wanting to avoid a receiving stolen goods charge later, had kept a digital copy of the son's driver's license and the signed ticket. The son had pawned a $15,000 heirloom for exactly $1,800. But there was more. Frank followed the money. The son didn't go buy a new PlayStation. He went straight to a parking lot behind a strip mall and met a guy in a black SUV. Frank got the plate on the SUV. It belonged to a known associate of a local illegal gambling ring. The son was a degenerate gambler. He owed money, and he'd used his mother's most prized possession to save his own skin, all while pinning it on me. I had everything I needed, but I waited. I wanted them to feel like they had won. I wanted them to start making mistakes. I spent the next 2 weeks working with my lawyer to prep the most scorched earth filing in the history of the county. See, my wife had made a major tactical error. When we got married, I insisted on a prenuptial agreement. At the time, she acted like she didn't care about the money, saying she just loved me. The prenup was clear. The house was mine. Any assets I brought into the marriage remained mine. In the event of a divorce, she would get a modest lump sum for every year of marriage, unless, and this was the kicker, she committed a bad faith act against me, which included criminal activity or attempting to defraud the estate. By accusing me of a felony theft she knew or should have known I didn't commit, and by her son actually committing the theft, she had effectively nuked her own financial safety net. 3 weeks to the day after I was kicked out, my wife finally reached out. I, 40 female, have been thinking, the text read. It's been 3 weeks. The house feels empty. I hope you've had time to reflect on why you felt the need to take the necklace. If you are ready to be honest, return the jewelry and apologize to my son for the way you've treated him. I am willing to discuss you coming home. We are a family, and families forgive. I stared at the phone. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. She wasn't asking for the truth. She was asking for a confession so she could hold it over my head for the rest of my life. She wanted a permanent leash. I'll be there at 6 p.m. tonight, I replied. We'll settle everything then. I didn't go alone. I had a process server in one car behind me and my lawyer on standby via phone. I also contacted the local precinct. I showed a sergeant the pawn shop evidence and the footage of the son. Since the necklace was valued at over $10,000, it was a Class 2 felony in our state. The sergeant agreed to have a unit nearby for a civil standby and to execute a warrant that they had processed with lightning speed once they saw the pawn shop ID match. I pulled into my driveway at 5:59 p.m. The lawn was overgrown. There were trash bags piled up near the side of the garage. My beautiful home looked like a frat house after a week-long bender. My heart hardened even more. I walked up to the front door and tried my code. It didn't work. I had to ring my own doorbell. The son opened the door. He was wearing a tank top and pajama pants, looking smug. "Oh, look who it is. Did you bring the goods, Dad?" "Move," I said, walking past him. My wife was in the living room. She had a glass of wine in her hand and was looking at me with this pitying expression. "I'm glad you decided to be a man about this. Where is it?" I sat down in the armchair across from her. I didn't take off my coat. I just pulled a thick blue-backed legal folder out of my bag and set it on the coffee table. "Is that a letter of apology?" she asked, reaching for it. "Read the first page," I said. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the document. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her face went from smug to pale in about 3 seconds. "What is this? This isn't what we talked about. You're divorcing me because I caught you stealing?" "I didn't steal anything," I said calmly. I pulled out a second folder. This one had the stills from the pawn shop. I spread them out on the table like a deck of cards. Here is him at the shop. Here's the copy of his ID he gave the clerk. And here's the signed statement from the owner saying he wore my college Modders hoodie to try and look like me on the low-res cameras. And here, I tossed a final paper down, is the GPS log from my car and my office keycard swipes showing I was 30 miles away when he was hawking your mother's emeralds to pay off a bookie named Sal. The son, who had been leaning against the doorway, suddenly looked like he was going to vomit. That's not me. That's a deep fake or something." "Shut up," I said, not even looking at him. "The police are outside. They have the warrant. They're just waiting for my signal to come in and pick you up for felony theft and filing a false police report." My wife looked at her son, then at the photos. The realization hit her like a physical blow. "Baby, is this true? Did you take it?" The kid broke. He didn't even try to lie anymore. He just started screaming.
I had to. They were going to break my legs, Mom. He has all this money and he wouldn't give me any. He treats me like a charity case. I deserved that money. It's going to be my house anyway one day. Actually, I interrupted, it's not. In addition to the divorce, I filed an emergency motion for exclusive use of the residence. Since the house is my separate property and your son has now admitted to a felony committed on the premises against a member of the household, you have exactly 48 hours to pack your things and leave. My wife started sobbing. You can't do this. Where will we go? I don't have a job. I haven't worked in 4 years because you told me I didn't have to. I told you that when I thought I had a wife who loved me, not a co-conspirator who would try to have me arrested to cover for her thieving son. You had a choice 3 weeks ago. You could have looked at the evidence. You could have believed the man who has provided everything for you. But you chose the lie. You chose to try and break me. So now I'm breaking the contract. You're a monster, the son yelled, lunging toward the table. I'll kill you. He actually swung at me. He was young and fast, but he was sloppy. I moved my head and he hit the back of the armchair. Before he could turn around, the front door kicked open. The officers hadn't waited for my signal. They'd heard the shouting. The next few minutes were a blur of shouting and crashing.
They tackled the son right in front of the TV. My wife was screaming, trying to pull the officers off him, yelling about how he was just a good kid who made a mistake. They had to threaten to arrest her for obstruction just to get her to sit down. As they dragged him out in handcuffs, he was crying like a toddler. Mom, don't let him take me. Tell them he gave it to me. Mom! She turned to me, her face twisted in rage. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed his life. He's 19. He'll have a record forever because of you. No, I said, standing up to leave. He has a record because he's a thief, and you're losing your lifestyle because you're a liar. I'm going back to the hotel for the next 2 days. If you aren't gone by Thursday at noon, the sheriff will be here to remove you, and everything you own will be put on the curb. Don't test me. I've already contacted the bank. Your secondary card is canceled. The lease on your car, it's under my company. It's being repossessed tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The look of pure, unadulterated terror on her face was the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. She finally realized that the nice, stable guy she'd been manipulating was gone. The following 48 hours were a masterclass in entitlement. She called my parents, crying that I had turned into a different person. My dad, bless him, told her, "My son doesn't change unless someone gives him a damn good reason. What did you do?" She tried to call my office to speak to my boss, hoping to get me in trouble. My boss is the one who helped me find the lawyer. He laughed in her face and told her she was lucky he didn't sue her for the time I'd lost dealing with her drama. Thursday at noon arrived. I pulled up to the house with a locksmith and a junk removal crew. I didn't know if she'd actually left. She was sitting on the curb next to a pile of suitcases. Her car, the one I'd been paying for, was already gone, picked up by the repo men that morning. She was waiting for an Uber. She looked 10 years older. "I have nowhere to go," she said as I got out of my car. "My sister won't take us in because of the theft. I have no money." "I have the $1,800 your son got for the necklace. Oh, wait, he gave that to a bookie. I guess you'll have to figure it out. Maybe your son can give you some advice on survival when you visit him in jail." I didn't even look back. I walked into my house. The locksmith changed every exterior door in 20 minutes. The junk crew hauled away the son's weights, his messy desk, and the furniture I'd bought for his room. I wanted every trace of them gone. The legal process was brutal, but because of the bad faith clause in the prenup and the police report, the judge was not kind to her. She tried to claim she was under duress when she signed the prenup 5 years ago. My lawyer produced a video of the signing where she was laughing and telling the notary how excited she was to marry me. Case closed. She walked away with exactly $0 in alimony. She got to keep her clothes and her jewelry, the stuff she hadn't helped her son steal. Last I heard, she's working at a diner in a town 2 hours away, living in a studio apartment. Her son took a plea deal, 2 years in state prison.
Turns out, once they started looking into his gambling, they found out he'd been involved in a small-scale identity theft ring at his college, too. He wasn't a good kid who made a mistake. He was a career criminal in training, and his mother was his primary enabler. Sitting here now in the quiet of my living room, I realized that the family I thought I had was a ghost. It was a play where I was the only one who didn't know the script, but I wrote the ending. And honestly, the silence in this house is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of a locksmith turning a key and a liar finally running out of things to say. If you liked seeing this happy family get a reality check, subscribe for more stories. I promise my content has better security than my old Wi-Fi. Would you like me to tell you about the time her scary brother tried to show up at my office to get a payout?